Everyone. Today I thought I would share a very personal and deep story, my personal story, in hopes to let you know that no matter where life leads you, no matter the darkest of dark places, no matter what you've been through, your whole life can change and you have the guidance and support and love and the power to change your life. A lot of you don't know that I am the survivor of domestic violence. I thought I was marrying my high school sweetheart, but that just wasn't the case. As I mentioned in another video, I grew up in a very conservative Christian household. Don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-religion, I'm not anti-Christian, I'm not anti-God. I'm just telling you the story as it happened to me. As a young child, growing up in a Christian household, the messages I received from my Christian faith was, if you're a good Christian wife and you're a dutiful wife and you're a subservient wife, that you will lead by example, and no matter what kind of relationship you have, it will always work out well. Your spouse, even if they're a horrible person, will turn out to see your example and want to be more like you. I heard example after this, year after year growing up, how this would happen for other people. So with that in mind, I thought when I got married, I would do whatever it took to make my marriage work. But I didn't know what that really meant for me. The next 10 plus years were really difficult. In the beginning, it wasn't about violence. It was isolation. It was more about mental abuse. I mean, when we were in high school, we were high school sweethearts. He was the prom king. I was the prom queen. I thought we were going to live a happily ever after. I had plenty of self-confidence. I was co-captain of the cheerleading squad. I was senior class president. Never once did I question my abilities or where I was going in life. But that quickly changed. Once we were married, the isolation really started quickly, keeping me away from family, keeping me away from friends, manipulating our money so that it was really difficult for me to really be independent in any sort of way. I didn't have a license, I didn't have a car, I completely had to depend on him. He quickly gave me messages that I was replaceable if I didn't look, act, talk a certain way. I was always replaceable. He gave me messages that I wasn't smart, that he actually even made me start questioning my sanity. He would do these outlandish things, and then when I would talk about them with him, he would make me think that I was the one that was crazy, that these things never happened. He never said those things. These things never happened. And being isolated with no one to tell me that, yes, you were right, and that really did happen. I only had his version of the truth. I really did start questioning my sanity. This went on for several years. He eventually started drinking, and that's when the violence really began. I can remember the first time that I wound up in the emergency room. And he came back the next day, of course, all apologetic. This will never happen again. I'm so sorry. I love you, and, you're my whole world. And I thought again, I would do whatever it takes to be a good wife, to do whatever needs to be done. I won't give up on him. Everybody else has given up on him in his life. I won't give up on him. And it just kept happening. I would try to go away, to get away, but it's so much of an addiction, not just for them, but for the abused. You have this mentality of wanting to save that other person, I mean, as girls, we grow up and we hear stories, fairy tales of, frogs turning into princes and, the beast, Beauty just loves him enough and he turns into a prince. I mean, why wouldn't I believe that? Why wouldn't I believe that if in some magical way, this person was going to transform? Maybe that's naive, but that's just what I believed. It really just kept getting worse and worse from there. I couldn't hold a steady job because the disruption in my life was just so much. I rarely had a car. I finally got my license, but we only had one car, and he made sure he always had it. I can remember several times he would abandon me at work when I worked really far away and I had no way to get home to teach me a lesson. I was always accused of cheating on him. I was always accused of doing all the things that he was really doing to me. He would follow me. He would, check my clothes. I mean, you name it, he would do it. Because he believed in his head that I was cheating on him and I was doing all these horrible things behind his back when I was rarely out of his sight. It really got really, really bad, and I thought the only way that I could keep money in our household, I mean, we would lose apartments because he would drink the money away. We just did not have a stable household. We would move around a lot. And I decided to open my own business. I thought if I had some flexibility, I was able to be my own boss, I would be able to, work around the drama in my life and still put food on the table. And my business went really well. And I was able to get a home. We purchased our first home. And I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is just what we needed, some stability. Maybe this is our happily ever after now. And I was really mistaken about that. We hadn't been in the home very long, and he had been drinking a lot. He was probably on a good 5-day bender. I come home from work, and I just had this sense of things were not going to be good today. I had a feeling of dread, and at that time I wasn't in tune with my gifts. But regardless of not being in tune, I still had a sense that I needed to get out of there. I took my kids and we went to the park. I thought if he could just pass out, we could have a better day tomorrow. Let's deal with tomorrow. And I got home with my kids, and it was dark now. We lived out in the country, a rural community. And I got home to see that there was a bonfire in my front yard. I couldn't tell what was burning, and who knew with him what, made him decide to start a fire. But I quickly found out what was going on. As I'd entered into the home, our newly purchased home, I had found that my home was destroyed. He had taken an axe to the walls, the windows. He had destroyed our clothes, our bedroom, everything. There was not one viable thing. What I didn't know was that while I was inside going room to room to see all the destruction, he was disabling my car. I truly believe that he had intended to kill us that day. I had gone upstairs to see what kind of damage was upstairs and found out what was burning in the front yard was my home office. All of my business records, tax records, client lists, computers, everything was burning in the front yard. I also didn't know that he had cleaned out our bank account, all of our bank accounts, including my business account. He had destroyed our phones inside the house, my cell phone, and for all intents and purposes, the phone should not have worked. But I grabbed the wall phone, what was left of it, I grabbed my children and we went into the closet, and I tried piecing wires together, twisting wires together to get the phone to work. And it really shouldn't have worked, but it did. And I was able to call for help, and I was able to get away. A lot of people didn't believe me that things were as bad as they were. His family, people that I reached out to, friends, a lot of people didn't believe me. That night I left with my children and the clothes on our back. I left my business. I left our home. I left everything to get away. I eventually was able to get away for good, but it took a long time for me to get back to me to figure out who I was. But I was able to follow the breadcrumbs that God, the universe, again, whatever it is, your higher power that you believe in, was able to lay out before me. And I was able to get my life back. I was able to stand in my power. It wasn't easy at all. I had to take a really hard look at myself. I knew statistics said that the likelihood of me going into another abusive relationship was very high. I didn't want that for my children. I took the time needed to heal, to look at myself, to work on myself before I even thought about getting in another relationship or dating. And because I did that work, I was able to find a wonderful man who loves and honors me, who cherishes me, who's my partner in every way, who is a wonderful father to my children and to our child together. And we really have had a wonderful and blessed life. So no matter what situation you're in, God is always there to help you to get through. The universe is there supporting you. Your soul doesn't forget who you're supposed to be. It's there inside of you, and you are able to access that. It's not easy to do. It's very painful to relive those things, and that's kind of why I don't share my story very often. But to know that you can do it, and you can have a wonderful life. It's not over. You have the power to do this. I hope this story maybe inspires someone who's struggling right now. And for those of you who may know someone who's struggling, don't give up on them. Be their support. You might not be able to help them, but be available when they are ready to make that leap. I know it's difficult for family and friends to see someone go through this over and over again and see them go back. But statistically, it can take 7 and 8 times before they're ready to really leave. Do what you can to support them. Don't judge them. Don't make them feel bad about themselves. They already have that enough. Just love them and be supportive for them. And one day, hopefully they will find the strength to go before it's too late. I was lucky that I was saved on more than one occasion. There had been several times that he could have easily taken my life. Several times that I thought he was going to take my life. For the longest time, even after leaving him, I truly believed in my heart that it was only a matter of time before he would find me and kill me. It took me a long time. I didn't even realize that I had PTSD until I was working with a veteran who noticed my reaction to something and said, "Oh, were you in the military?" And I said, "No, why?" And he's like, "Oh, because you have PTSD." And I was like, "No, I don't." And it wasn't until I realized all of the trauma that I was still holding in my body. Healing touch, Reiki, and working with wonderful supportive people have transformed my life into the life I have today. And now I'm able to share that gift with other people to help them transform their pain into something beautiful and a more abundant life. I hope this has inspired you or helped you in some way. Blessings, love, and light.